Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Roos. I'm currently the chair of the Board of Directors or the Board of Commissioners for the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Today is Wednesday, June 28th, 6 p.m. And I would like to call to order this annual organizational meeting of the Chittenden Solid Waste District. This is a meeting that happens once a year at this time. Meeting packet has been sent out and the agenda should be available to all commissioners. The first item on the agenda is the agenda itself. Noted there is one addition to the agenda. We will insert that between items 5 and 6. And that item to be added will be the granting of authority for expenditures. I'll explain that further when we come up with that item. Are there any other additions or corrections to the agenda for the organizational meeting? Hearing none, the agenda will be accepted as modified. Next item on the agenda are the June 2022 minutes of the organizational meeting. This is presented for information only. The minutes were presented and acted and approved by the board in August of 2022, but it's always good to review those. I trust that commissioners have reviewed them. Opportunity to ask any questions or clarifications on those minutes. We will be referring back to them in a few minutes, so if you've got them on your screen or on paper, it'd be good to keep them handy. I am hearing no interest in reviewing or asking questions about those minutes, so we'll now move on to item number 3, which is the introduction of new board members and also appreciation for those previously serving who have stepped down. Tonight we have 2 new commissioners joining us, or 1 full commissioner and 1 alternate. Our new commissioner from the town of Richmond is Andrew French, sitting to Sarah's left. Welcome, Andrew. We'll give you a chance in a moment to say any introductory words that you might like. And also Rachel Kennedy is present as the alternate from Winooski, and she is with us via Zoom. Welcome, Rachel. Before I ask any other question, I just also want to acknowledge the retirement of Logan Haig as our commissioner from Richmond, and also Dr. Ron Stotin from Winooski, who served as the alternate for 2 years. Both Logan and Ron made some very insightful and constructive contributions during their service on the board. I'm sad to see them go. Appreciate very much the contributions that they made. And I trust that they will be followed with some great work by both Andrew and Rachel. So welcome to you both. And again, thank you for Logan and Ron for your service. Andrew, just if you want to say any few words of introduction to let the other commissioners know who you are, that would be fine.
Sure. Well, as Paul said, my name is Andrew French. I'm the representative from Richmond, so thank you for having me. A little about myself, I'm 35, lived in the area almost my whole life, and right now I'm a stay-at-home dad to my 3 kids, ages 8, 6, and 3. So it's not my first board situation, but it is my first solid waste situation. So I'm looking to learn a lot and help out where I can. So thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for stepping forward and representing Richmond. Rachel, do you want to say anything? I'm sorry, I didn't give you a chance to warn you that I might put you on the spot.
That's okay. Can you hear me? I'm calling in, so just want to check.
Yes.
Hi, Rachel, also 35, representing Winooski. I have a background in urban and regional planning. I work for the Green Mountain Transit Authority for a bit, so familiar with the board, reporting to a board. This is the first board that I've been an alternate for. And I'm worked for the health department, the state health department, and the COVID response and emergency preparedness for a couple of years. And now I'm a process and performance analyst with the state of Vermont. So I'm excited to learn more about. I've been slowly working my way through that board packet, but I've still got several sections to go. So planning on just learning a lot.
Thank you, Rachel.
Very good. Thank you, Rachel. The next item on the agenda are elections. The process was outlined very clearly and thoroughly by Sarah in the meeting packet. I don't think we need to go through those procedures line by line. I'll go right into the elections of officers. The first position to be voted on is the position of chair. There has been one self-nomination so far, that is me. Are there other commissioners who wish to self-nominate for the position of chair? It's a great opportunity.
I would move we close the nominations for chair. Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we close the nominations for the position of chair of the Board of Commissioners for the Chittenden Solid Waste District. I don't think there's need for any discussion. I'm not going to give you a campaign speech. So we can move right into the voting. I'll ask you to, when you vote in person, to raise your hand so that they can be registered. Votes are weighted by town population, just as all commissioner votes are. So it's just important for our secretary to record those votes. So now if you're ready for the question, all those in favor of Paul Rives being elected to the position of board chair for the coming year, please raise your hand. You got it, Amy? Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? I will abstain. I will declare that I have been re-elected to the position of chair for the coming year. The next position to be voted on is that of vice chair. It has been capably served for many years by Alan Nye of Essex. He has self-nominated again. Are there any additional self-nominations for the position of vice chair? Either in this room or online.
Move to close the nominations for vice chair. Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the nominations be closed for the position of vice chair. We have one nominee, and that is Alan Nye of Essex. All those in favor of Alan Nye to serve as vice chair for the coming year, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Raise your hand. Any abstentions?
Abstained, Essex.
Thank you. I believe the vote is unanimous with the exception of one abstention. So Alan Nye is re-elected as vice chair for the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Thank you, Alan. Next position is the position of secretary. That has been filled for many, many years very capably by Amy Jewell. As is noted probably in the packet, but also in our charter, the position of secretary and of treasurer does not need to be filled by a commissioner. It can be filled by somebody who is not a commissioner. And for several years, that has been the case, which is why Amy has served in that position. We have received no self-nominations up to this point.
I would nominate Amy Jewell for the position of secretary of Chittenden Solid Waste District.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded, but I do want to give the opportunity for anybody else to self-nominate at this point for that position. I am seeing none in this room, and I am not seeing any via Zoom. So it has been moved and seconded to elect Amy Jewell as secretary again for the coming year. I think we're ready for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? Amy does not get to vote, even though she is an officer.
Thank you.
I declare it unanimous that Amy Jewell is re-elected as secretary. Thank you very much for this level of service to the district. Finally, we have the position of treasurer. Been very capably served for several years by Leslie Nolte. Thank you very much, Leslie. She's indicated that she is willing to step down from that role, pass the torch on to somebody else. Paul Stabler has self-nominated. Are there any other self-nominations from the Board of Commissioners to fill the role of treasurer?
I would move we close the nominations for treasurer. Seconded, Boston.
It's been moved and seconded that we close the nomination process for the position of treasurer. We have one nomination, that is Paul Stabler. All those in favor of electing Paul Stabler as treasurer for the coming year, please raise your hand. Are there any opposed? Mike, you were an affirmative, correct? Or are you an opposed?
Me?
Yes,
Affirmative.
excellent.
Even though I've known Paul for decades. Yeah, I will still approve it. In spite of that, yes.
We have no votes, any abstentions? Thank you. We have one abstention. I declare Paul Stabler to be elected for the position of treasurer for the coming year. Thank you very much, Paul, for stepping in. Paul has also been part of was on the finance committee for the past year. So he's reasonably up to speed on the financial affairs that come before the finance committee. And again, thank you, Leslie, for your many years of service.
More than what they did.
Next item on the agenda is the executive board. Oh, and I see the granting of authority is there. We'll stick with the executive board. That these positions are also elected. The executive board consists of the chair and four elected commissioners. 4 people have self-nominated. They also served on the exec board last year. They are Alan Nye, Lee Perry, Paul Stabler, and Kelton Bogaski. Are there any other self-nominations for the position of executive board? There are 4 positions to be elected and we have 4 candidates, we do not need to go to a paper ballot or a private ballot. I think we can elect all of them as a slate. That will save some time. But again, are there any other self-nominations for the position for being on the executive board?
I move to close the nominations for executive board. Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to close the nomination period for the election of the executive board. The current nominees are Alan Nye, Lee Perry, Paul Stabler, and Kelton Bogaski. On the off chance that one of these people may choose to abstain, I'd ask you still to vote for the other folks, set modesty aside. So all those in favor of electing the slate for the executive board, Alan Nye, Lee Perry, Paul Stabler, and Kelton Bogaski, please raise your hand. Any opposed to the slate? Those positions have all now been elected. Again, thank you very much for your willingness to continue to serve on the executive board.
Clarification, Paul, the chair of the board is a member also.
That is correct, automatically. So I had amended the organizational meeting agenda to address the granting of authority, but I see it's listed here under elections. So I think we'll still continue with the modified agenda and deal with that separately. Next item on item 4E, is the Finance Committee members. Finance Committee consists of the treasurer, automatically the chair of the Finance Committee, and 2 additional members. Those positions are appointed by the chair. I have had indications from 2 individuals that they would like to continue to serve on the Finance Committee. If there are other commissioners who wish to join the Finance Committee, you can let me know. I do not need to appoint them tonight. I'll give you the opportunity to think about it. You can reach out to me. I ask you to do that very soon. And then I will make the appointments to the Finance Committee and I'll let everybody know before the next board meeting what the constitution of the Finance Committee will be. Again, we do have enough self-nominations right now to fill all the required slots for the Finance Committee. Next item, we're moving on to item 5. Set the meeting schedule for the board and executive board. There was a corrective email that went out early this afternoon. The correction was with the November dates. They happen to be transposed. So in case you hadn't received that or noticed it, the calendar for November would be Monday, November 6th would be the executive board, and Wednesday, November 15th would be the full board.
I did just want to note that Monday, February 19th is President's Day, and we are not closed that day, so we kept the meeting date, but we don't know that other folks might have that day off, and so we put it in as the 19th, but it may we may want to change
We
it.
may want to change it. I think that's still far enough down the road that we can wait for folks to raise that issue as we approach February and see if we need to make a date change on that. I believe we need a motion to accept the calendar, to adopt the
So
calendar.
moves up Burlington. Seconded Essex.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the calendar as presented with that one clarification and correction on November. Any discussion?
I had a quick question.
Yep, Corinne.
Amy, I'm sure you already covered this in your review. Does CSWD recognize Juneteenth on the 19th?
We do.
Any other questions or discussions on adopting the calendar? Pretty much the same schedule we followed, for the same pattern of the third Monday and the fourth Wednesday, with the exception of November and December. I think then we're ready to vote on this. All those in favor of adopting the calendar as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Calendar is adopted. Okay, the next item is inserted between items 5 and 6. This is granting of authority. And this is essentially granting a purchasing or expenditure authority. Traditionally, the executive director is authorized to spend monies in the amount up to $50,000 on her own authority. Amounts between $50,000 and $100,000, give or take that dollar, must go to the exec board for its approval, and any expenditure over $100,000 must come before the full board for approval. And so that granting of authority is before us tonight. I'd entertain a motion to authorize spending authority as I just related to you.
Do you want to read the?
Could you read that off?
Sure. For the granting of authority, motion to authorize the executive board to approve expenditures up to $100,000, and motion to authorize the executive director to expend up to $50,000, and motion to authorize the full board to approve expenditures above $100,000.
So moves up Burlington.
Second, Winooski.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the spending authority as read out by the executive director. Any discussion or questions on this motion? Any concerns? Maybe I would say it's only part of the board's responsibility to provide oversight. We do spend lots of significant sums of money, and it's one of the most important things that we do in representing the interests of our communities and our constituents. So it's important that we provide that oversight. That's my only comment. I think we're ready for voting on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no or nay. Any abstentions? Spending authority has been granted. Next item is on the agenda is item 6, set the interest rate for late payment. That would come into play in the event that there was an assessment by CSWD to our member towns for monies to support or underwrite the programs and activities of the district. This has never happened. We certainly have every hope and expectation that it will not happen, but we need still to establish that authority to establish interest rates for late payments. That's why it's before us tonight. So Sarah, could you read off the motion, the wording of the motion?
To set interest payments, motion to set the interest rate for late payment at 1% per month, 12% per annum for member towns if assessments are established.
Moved. Essex. Seconds up Burlington.
I think it's been moved and seconded to to set the interest rates for late payments from member towns in the event that there was an assessment to them. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of setting the interest payments as read in the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The interest rate, payment rates have been established as per the motion. Next item is continuing the Fidelity bond for officers. That is insurance basically for the officers of the district for I'm not sure.
I think errors and omissions.
Errors and omissions, hopefully we will not do that, but it's important for us in those positions to know that we have some financial backing should somebody object to what we're doing and want to establish or assess a financial penalty.
So to continue the Fidelity bond for officers, motion to continue the Fidelity bond of $500,000 per incident for commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District, the Director of Finance, and the Executive Director.
So moved. Essex, second South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to continue the Fidelity bond for officers. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Abstentions. Motion carries and Fidelity bond has been set. Final item is the approval of check signing privileges. Just go right to the language. I think it'll be self-explanatory.
Motion to authorize the Chair of the Board of Commissioners, the Executive Director, the Director of Administration, and the Treasurer to sign checks and electronic transfers throughout the upcoming year. And further, any check or electronic transfer greater than $25,000 shall require 2 signatures.
Anybody care to move that?
So moved. Poston.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Winooski.
Been moved and seconded to establish these check signing privileges in the amounts that were identified in the motion. Any discussion? Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Check signing privileges are now established. That concludes the items on our organizational meeting agenda. Is there any other business to come before this organizational meeting?
I would move to adjourn the organizational meeting. Second South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the annual organizational meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The meeting is adjourned. We're now ready to move on to the regularly scheduled monthly meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the Chittenden Solid Waste District. And that meeting packet was sent out to all the commissioners late last week. You've had a chance to wade through it. As best you can, we'll be going through some of these items in detail as we proceed through this meeting. First item on the agenda is the agenda itself. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda will be followed as presented in the meeting packet. Second item is a public comment period. Are there any members of the public, either present in person or via Zoom or via the telephone, who would like to address the Board of Commissioners? I see none in this room.
There's one attendee on Zoom.
Is there some, I can't see. If there,
The next agenda.
Yes.
Paul Holman is a representative from a business who will be able to meet with us later on in the meeting, but I do not believe that he has any interest in addressing the board at this time.
A moment.
Not at this time.
Thank you, Paul.
Seeing no one in this room and hearing nobody on phone or seeing anybody on Zoom, we'll close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. A fair number of items on there. Consists of the minutes of the May 24th, 2023 board meeting, the regular program update memos, the executive director update, finance report, the lengthy FY22 audit results, which was reviewed by the finance committee at its last meeting. And generally, and received very good comments, positive comments and appreciation from the finance committee. Third quarter financials for fiscal year 2023, and an extension of the lease for the environmental depot with the city of South Burlington. Any requests to remove any of those items for the consent agenda, from the consent agenda? Kelton?
The executive director update just around the MERC grants. I think
Okay.
it's important to just have that conversation.
Sounds good. We'll pull that item. That's the executive director update. Item 3.3 will be removed from the consent agenda and taken up for further discussion momentarily. Any other requests to remove something from the consent agenda? And again, the lease extension, by being part of the consent agenda, that authorizes the executive director to execute that extension. Hearing no other requests to remove an item, the consent agenda is accepted with the exception of item 3.3, the executive director update. We will now take that up. Kelton, you want to?
Yeah, I just curious to get an update just from hearing. Obviously, I read the packet, but I also think it's important just keep everyone up to date on that and the public as well.
Certainly, thank you. So as I noted in my update, I just want to give a quick review of the grants to date. And we did receive, as the board is aware, a $250,000 grant from the Recycling Partnership for specifically for a polypropylene optical sorter in the new MRF. So we received that paperwork and we signed that. So that is in the works. And as soon as we decide and award the equipment contract, should the board decide to do that tonight, then we can start that process of getting reimbursed through that grant. And the larger grant that we are still waiting on is through the Environmental Protection Agency. It was a very, very large grant that was offered about a year and a half ago, solid waste infrastructure for recycling, SWIFR grant. We did apply for the maximum amount allowable for our entity, which was $4 million. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of applications across the country. So it took the EPA significantly longer to wade through those applications. They also did extend the submission deadline by a month, so that delayed things as well. But we were notified recently that we did make it to the next level, which is merit consideration. So that's a very big deal for us. That means we are now in a smaller pool of consideration, which raises our chances. And also because we're in a small region, I think that also makes our chances that much higher. The EPA can choose to award all or some of the request. So they may also be looking at whoever is left and saying, okay, how can we best divvy up the amount that is allotted to Region 1? And we are in Region 1 of the US EPA. So we are still waiting, but we are waiting with higher hopes and smiles, and I don't know what later in the summer 2023 means, but hopefully we do know that the awards will need to come before the start of the next federal fiscal year, so October 1st, correct. So we will hear something either way before then.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on this particular item?
Any progress, or has there been any requests for our legislators to support additional funding?
That was part of the original application. So we submitted letters of support from our delegation, from A&R, and we had a couple of other letters.
I think you asked me to write a letter.
Yes, our board. And I think we may have had one other, I can't recall.
No, A&R you said.
Yeah, A&R, so we did, yes.
Any other discussion or questions on the grants? Because this was part of Sarah's monthly memo, this is really not an action item, so we don't need to vote to approve. We just, it's part of the regular consent agenda, so we can move on now with no further action on that item. Next item on the agenda is item 4E, the organics recycling facility. Also, I guess I would call it Green Mountain Compost on Redmond Road.
That is the brand of
brand,
the compost product that we sell. We still calling it Green Mountain Compost, but yes, it's the organics recycling facility.
For the benefit of newer commissioners, there are a lot of acronyms. The MRF is a good one, but there are lots of things. So if these come up and you hear some letters you don't understand, by all means, stop and ask, what does that mean? And in this case, we're dealing with the organics recycling facility.
Yes.
It used to be the organics diversion facility.
Yes.
ODF.
I know, the ORF.
Now that you are, screener purchase. I will turn it over either to Sarah or Dan to walk us through. Dan, you're here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I wanted to just throw out that in addition to this new building, we have also just about 98% moved into our new facility, our new scale house and the accompanying office building on the same facility at Redmond Road. But if anybody's curious to see that, we'd be happy to show you around. Got some very nice new pavement on our drive-in and residential food waste drop-off area, which has got lots of parking, ample parking for all of the people who have been going to the end of the road at Redmond Road for the last, well, since the beginning of the pandemic, I think, roughly. So we will be soon sending all that food waste back to our facility so that we aren't transporting quite as much from one to the other. But today I'm talking about the screener. We have 2 screeners on site that do the processing. For any of those unfamiliar with our process, I won't go through it, but basically we make the compost for a few months and then we put it through machines to separate fine fraction from large fraction. And this one is due for replacement. The good news is that we had budgeted $750,000 for it, and actually all of the bids we received back were below that, and one of them was substantially below that, and that is the one that we are asking for approval for today. So we received bids from 2 vendors. One we're very familiar with, the Comtech. That's the machine that we've been running for quite a few years there, and 4 different variations of that machine. And then the one that we are seeking purchase approval for is from an outfit called Timber Ridge. They are out of Pennsylvania, and they are representing the Eggersman S60 Star Select screener. So with the trade-in value, the actual purchase price of the machine that we're seeking to purchase is $530,000. However, as cited in the memo, there are a bunch of ancillary pieces of equipment that would be supporting the screening of that material, and those are listed, as well as the electrical installation, because we have shifted some new information for some of you, but we went from a full diesel operation where we were using diesel for all of our screening, and now we extended 3-phase power down to the far end of our facility 3 years ago, I guess it was, and now we're utilizing that for all of the Star Screen operation. And so all of the bids received have that capability of running on electric, and so we would seek to continue that, but with the addition of an electric conveyor, we would need to bring them in and make sure that the old wiring is working for the screener, and then a new wiring for that new conveyor. So total dollars would be $612,150. However, because there's a little bit of estimating, particularly with the electrical, at this point we asked for a total project price not to exceed $615,000, with the actual screener itself not exceeding $538,000 of the budgeted $750,000. Any questions about that?
The other screener, what's the expected date for that to be replaced?
So the other one was a recent acquisition. It was within the last fiscal year. That one, I believe we have a 10-year replacement schedule on it. So, and the news from that is it's working great. It's been a fantastic addition. It's been doing what we expected to, which is primarily removing contamination early on in the process. And we've been using it as a backup to the current aging Star Screener, and I've been very happy with it. But yeah, we've got quite a long, actually now with replacing this one, it will be a very long time before we will be replacing screeners.
You anticipate both would need to be replaced at some point at the same time down the road? Or?
Probably not exactly the same time. The one that we're looking to replace now is used a lot more. Generally, it is an all-year thing. The other one, it has a larger opening so that it requires less hours to process the same volume of material, if that makes any sense. So we're further refining at the final end of the process with the machine that we're looking to acquire now. And it's a longer, it's a slower throughput on that machine due to the smaller fraction size. So to answer your question, yeah, roughly, probably within a year or two or three would be my guess by the time we go to replace them, but not the same year.
And we're looking 10 years down the road.
Yes.
Alan?
Are we comfortable that that little bit less than $3,000 is going to be enough for any additional work? Because we often have people coming back to the board to get another increase.
Yeah.
We could do that now.
It's up to you. I mean, I spoke with the electrician today and I don't have a steadfast number from them yet. And so we have a plan to look at it together. I'm fairly comfortable. I believe we'll be able to utilize the existing conduit rather than putting a new conduit, and it's a short run. So I think it's okay, but if you wanted to tack on, I mean, we've got plenty of budget, so if you wanted to apply an extra $5,000 cushion or something, that would be fine. And
Generally, our contingencies are, depending on the project or the item, between 5 and 10%. So we could amend the resolution to say total project cost not to exceed $615,000 plus an additional 5% contingency. Something along those lines, if that is more. And I think that's plenty.
that would be plenty, yes.
And so that would, the contingency would only be expended with generally Dan's approval, but also mine.
I think that would be a good idea, Paul.
We can amend the resolution.
We've got that language. We'll have, we're asking Dan for questions now. We'll have a motion in a minute and another opportunity to ask further questions. Why don't we, for clarity's sake, then get this resolution in front of us, the specific language, so that we know when we're discussing and again, have an opportunity to ask more questions. Sarah, could you read that off?
Sure. Be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners authorizes the Executive Director to enter into a contractual agreement for the purchase of an Eggersman Star Select S60 compost screener with Timber Ridge Equipment, Freda, Pennsylvania, for a total not to exceed $538,000. Total project cost, including installation and additional equipment, shall not exceed $615,000. An additional contingency of 5% shall be applied only with authorization of the Executive Director.
Second, Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to authorize the purchase. I don't want to confuse things by restating those numbers, but the key change is that there's an additional 5% contingency to cover unexpected overages, and that it's the authority to spend that contingency money rests with the Executive Director. Lee, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Dan. The two extra buckets, the 6 cubic yard rollout and a 4 cubic yard, are those specific to one loader, or will they fit? How many loaders do you have out there?
We have a total of 3 loaders, and one of them, the rollout would be usable for 2 of those. The 4 yard would be usable for 1 of the 3.
Gotcha.
But the other ones already have an equivalent size bucket. It's just they have different couplings, and unfortunately, we haven't gotten to that point where every district loader is the same coupler, but
yeah,
getting closer.
That rollout bucket will give us significant reach to load that machine. Like you stated in the memo, you wouldn't need to build an incline ramp up to the machine.
Yeah, it's something we've thought about for a long time as being beneficial, because historically we've always had to build a ramp, and there's a lot of drawbacks to that, both in terms of wear and tear on the equipment, but also extra fuel every bucket load. But it also limits the ability to move the machine from the ramp. Once you've got the ramp there, you can't really move. So yes, and we would also be able to utilize that for other, loading the taller walking floor trailers and such is very challenging with their existing equipment. So that would be an added bonus.
Is there only one manufacturer around that bid on that, or did you?
There are several that make rollout buckets. We got pricing from a few different ones. This one was considerably cheaper and happens to be from the vendor who sold us the machine. So we felt comfortable about the hydraulic connection being, ready to go and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Leslie?
I just had a question. Do these kind of purchases typically have an associated service contract from the vendor?
No, they all
Or do we
come,
not need them?
they all come with warranties, and some of them are 2-year warranties, some of them are 3, but service contracts have not traditionally been part of like the stationary or portable screener purchases. I think they have been made available occasionally on some of the rolling stock, but we have not opted for any service contract for any equipment district-wide. Yeah, I think we do have some in-house capability certainly, and we benefit from having good service technicians within 3 miles, I think, of our facility for all of our loaders, and some of our additional equipment is also, within Williston's got good representation from manufacturers, so we're well covered in the event of a breakdown.
For additional discussion on the motion to authorize the purchase of this screener.
I have one question. So it says that they likely aren't expecting delivery till March of 2024. Is there any need or urgency to have it sooner?
No, it's a good question. So our primary screening season, we screen all year round, but it's critical during the spring, which doesn't generally begin before March. And we were a little bit nervous actually about that timing, like what if it doesn't show up in March, because we've had that experience with our last screener purchase. And the dealer has an identical machine that they have for demos, and they said, well, we will provide that until the new one arrives. So that gave us all the assurance we needed there. But yeah, it's a good question, because that would be bad.
Thank you.
Additional questions? I'm hearing none.
Question.
Move the question. I don't think we need official action on moving it. I think we're ready. We don't have to vote on moving the question here. Save a few moments. I think we're now ready to vote on the motion to authorize the purchase of this new screener for the dollar amounts that were identified, the contingency that was also identified. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Purchase is authorized.
Thank
you. Thanks very much, Dan. Next item on the agenda, item number 5, the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between the City of Burlington and the Chittenden Solid Waste District. Turn it over to Sarah to walk us through this.
Thank you. So as very briefly recounted in the memo in the packet, CSWD has an MOU with the City of Burlington to move towards a purchase and sale agreement for property that CSWD owns on Flint Avenue and that the city may be desirous of purchasing for use as city property. The reason we purchased the land back in 2001 was to secure a location for a permanent drop-off center within the City of Burlington. And the thought since then had been to eventually transfer the property over to the city through sale, and then we would lease back the property as we do with our other drop-off center properties. So it took a bit longer than the district had originally intended, but we are definitely at a good place. We have had a couple of MOUs to get us to this position. The city has requested that we extend the current MOU for an additional 3 months. We are working very, very hard and in good faith towards coming to a purchase and sale agreement. There is a difference in this third extension in that it is a restated version of the MOU, and what that means is that it is not the exact same language that you had approved previously and then extended. The difference being that the restated version removes the option payments which the city had been paying, essentially to kind of have us hold the property from sale. The reason was that there's only, the payment would have been due July 1, and with only 3 months, it didn't make much sense to grab another $16,665 from the city for another 3 months. So that is the main difference in this restated MOU. And both parties feel that we are making significant progress, that 3 months should be sufficient. And the city council has authorized the extension.
Any questions on extending the MOU?
South Burlington, I fully support this extension. I'm happy and grateful to the city of Burlington for working with us, and I'm optimistic that this will work out such that we have an improved drop-off center on Pine Street, which is the ultimate goal, to get a drop-off center there in Burlington to help take pressure off other drop-off centers.
Indeed, and there's especially folks in that area of the city have regularly expressed desire to have more services at the drop-off center. Currently, we're only accepting organic materials, so the goal would be to, again, expand that property if we're able to make this whole idea happen, to bring more service back to Burlington residents.
Good question. On the next steps, it's page 92 of 94, the packet. So I was just wondering if it's restated, do the dates in the next steps section need to be adjusted?
So that was basically provided just background information from several months ago. So the dates included in the MOU are the ones that we want to be focusing on. So the dates in this memo most likely have moved.
It's been updated.
Yeah, so the MOU is current.
And what we go past September 30th?
Yeah, it is a good question, and we are in the third extension, right? So it's a very valid question. The city does want to move forward. CSWD wants to move forward. The city has been a great partner in these conversations, particularly over the past 6 months. Both parties are motivated. So, Chapin's not on, but I think, Lee, you could probably speak to Chapin's desire to move this process.
Yeah, we want to move this across the finish line. And as Sarah stated, we've both been working diligently together to get through this. CSWD has been a great partner, and we want to get it done, and we're really close. Unfortunately, schedules with appraisal contractors or consultants, we just couldn't get it done before the MOU expired at the end of this month.
Right, so the extension has nothing to do with delays or anything on the part of either party. It really was kind of securing those additional consultants that we needed to secure, which we have done.
Is there any thought about returning to option payments if we go past September 30th?
No, the option payments would remain with CSWD. That was part of the original.
And we will be dealing with this issue, assuming we get all the information that we need in order to conclude the negotiations. This will be back before the board.
Oh, yes.
In executive session to discuss the final terms. Tonight, we don't really want to get into those unless it's absolutely necessary. We're only talking about extending the MOU, not the terms of the final agreement. We will still be dealing with this, hopefully nailing down the final details sometime within the next 3 months.
That's right.
Any other questions? We do not yet have the motion in front of us, though. There is language in our packet on page 84, I believe. That could be read into the record. Is it on? No, I'm sorry, it's on page
86.
Page, I'm lost.
86 of the PDF.
86 of the PDF.
Be resolved, the Board of, go ahead, Leslie.
I was just gonna make a motion.
Oh, okay, I'll read it right here. Be resolved, the Board of Commissioners authorizes the Executive Director to extend the second memorandum of understanding with the City of Burlington for a third extension to expire September 30, 2023.
So moved.
Second, South Burlington.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to extend the memorandum of understanding between CSWD and the city of Burlington for an additional 3 months to September 30th, 2023. Any additional questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
Extension, Burlington.
Thank you. Thank you, Lee. The extension has been approved by this board.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the materials recycling facility, the new mission, the new MRF, the new system equipment. Hopefully we will get through this and be able to make a decision to award the equipment contract tonight. I'll turn it again over to Sarah to walk us through the history and what's before us tonight.
Great, thank you very much. So, again, as the board is very well aware, we have been approved by the voters to build a new materials recycling facility on property we own on Redmond Road in Williston. And a key component of that is the actual processing system itself. So the way the materials move through the recycling facility and get sorted and baled and then on to markets. The board last year, I believe it was last July, conditionally awarded a contract or authorized me to sign a contract with the vendor. And it was conditional because we had to wait for voter approval in November. And then we had to wait, once we got that, another couple of months as a kind of a cooling down period. If anyone challenged the bond vote, we had to wait for that. Then we had to apply for funding to the bond bank, wait for that process. And then by the time we were ready to sign and had the money in hand, the 120-day price hold that is standard in all of our RFPs had passed. At that point, or close to that point, within about a month after that, we were informed by the selected vendor that the price may be increasing, most likely would be increasing by up to $3 million. So at that time, I asked our director of operations to reach out to the other top points getters in the original selection and inquire if there had been similar movement in pricing for their systems. They indicated that there had not. So that said to me that we needed to issue an addendum to get updated pricing from each of the vendors, and that is what we did. So as a result of that addendum to that RFP, we now have updated pricing that is listed in your memo. I included both the original pricing and then now the current pricing for your comparison. And we are recommending an award to a different vendor. The vendor that we are recommending was actually one we were going to recommend the first time around. And then as we were finalizing pricing with each of the vendors, we did get a very good deal from the previous vendor. So that tipped the points scale essentially in the evaluation. This time around, we made sure that every system was apples to apples. So they were all bidding on essentially the same requirements. And you can see it was extraordinarily tight. So the pricing between all the systems I think this is representative of exactly what the system would cost. Unlike before when there were some options maybe thrown in and there were some differences. There are no differences this time around. So we were able to really look at, well, what did we like about BHS before that is still considered part of the base system. And we were thrilled that they also happened to come in just that much below Van Dyke and Machine X, but it was very, very tight. Each company, each firm is excellent. So we had, there was no concerns with any of the companies themselves. They all produce fantastic equipment and we would be thrilled with any of them. The selection for BHS, again, just slightly lower in price. It really is that technology difference. It's the visioning system, it's that system's ability to learn. It's flexibility for changes in our material mix as it evolves, which is critical. We know it's changing all the time. And just to be able to extract the kind of data that we're going to need going forward in really the very near future. So all of those factors helped to lead the evaluation team, whereas myself, Jen, and Josh Esty on the evaluation team. We did meet with DHS. They came to Vermont a couple of weeks ago, and they did have to redesign their system because the main reason we were uncomfortable last time was they had a system of pneumatic tubes, and we weren't comfortable with that. They are now conveyors, it's all apples to apples. So that redesigned system is one that we prefer, and they were able to answer all of our questions and concerns satisfactorily, and we feel very confident with the selection. The price is higher than the original award last year. As I mentioned, the bid coming in from Van Dyke was 16.1, but then when we added in the compressors that were necessary, it did bump it up to about 16.6. So all in all, the cost is looking at a little bit, maybe $200,000-ish higher, as well within our estimate of the overall system price. We feel we can absorb that. And we do have Paul Holland from BHS to answer any questions.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Paul. Thank you.
I have Steve Miller, our CEO, with me as well. Happy
Excellent.
to join you guys tonight.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, hi, Sarah.
Hi, Steve.
Would you folks want to, I guess we could see you on screen. I think Sarah's gone over this pretty well, but I don't want to take up too much of your time, but just so we can see your face, anything that you might want to offer and tell us about your company.
We'd love to talk about ourselves. So that's a great invitation. Thank you. I think, Sarah, you had asked that we present the information that we did a couple of weeks ago. Would you like us to go through that or just talk about who we are?
Yeah, Paul, thank you. I think if just talking for now would be great. If there's something that one of the commissioners has a particular concern about or question, you happen to have a slide or that.
Okay, sounds great. The company is based in Eugene, Oregon. We were formed in 1976, really for the wood products industry. And then as things developed, recycling became more of a thing, and the mixing of materials in recycling became more of a thing. We found that some of the equipment we used in wood products applied to it, and really all of our business has moved virtually all into the greater recycling arena. Single stream recycling, of course, is what everybody thinks about, but we also do quite a lot of MSW processing, plastic processing facilities of different types, construction demolition waste. One of our divisions produces anaerobic digestion and compost systems, so we deal with organics, really everything related to the waste stream. We do this worldwide. Here in North America, that's roughly 70% of our business over time, but we operate throughout Europe, Asia, Middle East, really all over. There's, of course, waste everywhere. And so we're called upon to process it in different places. Part of our growth, we've always felt that we needed to control the development of technology and to be sure that we were able to provide a fully integrated system. And so that's led our investment efforts. That includes the acquisition of an optical sorting company called NRT. They were formed in 1981. We acquired them in 2012, and they produce optical sorting equipment based in Nashville, Tennessee. And we also acquired a company based in Amsterdam by the name of Nihat that was really involved in the preparation of fuels to replace fuels out of waste that would replace coal in cement facilities or other kind of waste energy facilities. We've continued that development in in working with AI and robotics. We were really the first mover in that space and developed a brand called Max AI, where we produce a robotic-driven or an AI-driven robotic sorting unit to replace some of the activity that people do. We don't have that in your design, although we have designed it such that that's an easy addition later on if you choose to go that direction. But we also do integrate AI with our optical sorting and within our controls automation. All of these things are manufactured in Nashville. And that includes, of course, our engineering teams, assembly, installation, service technicians. And really, we've done that so we can truly provide this fully integrated system. And so that's the kind of 5-minute elevator speech, maybe 6 minutes on the company. And everything really, very focused on recovery of materials and putting them to beneficial use.
Thank you, Paul.
Kelton, your hand was up. Leslie?
Yeah, it was sort of unrelated to the presentation on the physical aspect. My question was, have we done a reset of the budget, the MERF project budget in view of some of these cost increases?
That's why I was mentioning that the additional 200,000 is well within what we felt was our stretch parameters for the budget. So something like that is fairly, nothing is easy, right, in these things, but it is not difficult to remove some $250,000 from another area, for example, savings on the building envelope. So that bid is out now for the design build for the building. So that will be the next area of real scrutiny to see, all right, where can we save and squeeze and make sure that the total project is coming in to the expected.
Well, I would just hope at some point, the board could at least see some interim revisions, understanding that it could be, you could present something 1 month and 2-3 months later, you have to come back with another revision. But I think we should be kept in the loop because the state of the markets for everything right now is very unpredictable.
Yes.
And anyway.
Point.
You got the point.
Yes, thank you.
Kelton?
Where would, and I guess this just comes up because we just, had to take a belt from the MERC down at Williston. So where is the closest system, that BHS system? And then kind of a second part to that question, obviously work with Casella right now. Have they worked with BHS systems in the past, and do they understand how the system operates? And obviously I know we might go either way, but with
Sure.
them being our current operator.
Yeah, the closest comparable BHS system is in Delaware, and it is owned by the Delaware Solid Waste Authority, so another municipal entity, just very similar to us, similar mix, similar size. I'm good friends with the director there, and then I spoke with Rick, and he had nothing but good things to say about the equipment there. Their BHS system was installed in 2012, and he said they have never had even a minor issue with any of that equipment. So there have not been any major concerns, not really any minor concerns. Everything has just been general, normal maintenance. The technician servicing that facility is in Philadelphia, and that was a factor in consideration. Obviously, Machine X is in Quebec, so it's only an hour and a half, 2 hours for a tech to get down here from there. Van Dyke is in Stamford, Connecticut, so 4 hours-ish. So Philly is a little further away, but it's a quick flight should we need that assistance. However, BHS has a really robust remote troubleshooting and remote process to be able to be kind of watching our system from afar, be able to identify issues, kind of in real time, alert us, then be able to go to where there may be a concern and then troubleshoot either online or on the phone, or if there's a need for someone to come in Philly's not that far away. As far as, has Casella used BHS equipment? I don't think so. But to your point, the thought at this point is to go out to bid for those operating services. So Casella may win the bid, they may not win the bid, but any operator, MRF operator, is now very familiar with operating these types of systems. Our system is the anomaly. Our current system is the anomaly. So anyone who is in the modern realm now is operating this type of a system with these kinds of electronics. Obviously, they would go to BHS to be trained. BHS would come to us to further train. That would be part of the deal.
Sorry, on that point, if I could just add a couple of points. We do, just to validate, we do have 24/7 online technical support. Within the system itself, we have what we call our e-portal system. And it's a system that contains all of the product manuals, including full service manuals. We also have a training routine to train both operators and maintenance technicians. And that supplements the initial training that we do, but also supports training downstream as new people come on board and there's transition of staff. So there are a number of things that we do to support the operator, and all of that is simply part of the package that we're providing.
Thank you, Paul.
Is the training part of this total cost?
Yes.
And do we know of any fail sort statistics with the BHS equipment?
So the equipment providers were required to guarantee that their systems could meet certain specifications. So that guarantee is in here. So this equipment will meet the current market specifications as like the low bar. We will have the ability to fine tune and tweak the system. The goal is to meet not just the market specs, but to go above and beyond and to try to achieve the Institute for Scrap Recycling, ISRI, trying to avoid the acronyms, Scrap Recycling Institute specifications, which are significantly higher. So within that few percentage points is where we'll be able to work with the system and try to meet those higher specs. But yes, each system was required to meet a minimum market requirement for us, which is in the 95% purity range.
Great. And then the question I'm trying to remember is, I need you to come back to me. Oh wait, I got it. Adaptability.
Oh, yes, yes.
I think you touched on it a little bit here, but
Yes.
materials are changing constantly
Yes.
and the equipment is capable of adapting.
That is the really exciting part of going with this system. This system, their visioning system, their technology, their artificial intelligence capabilities are the fastest, most adaptable that we've seen in the marketplace. And we've been researching this for 4 to 5 years. We've talked to everybody in the business that services and works in the Northeast. And this one is the most robust and the nimblest. And that was important for us. Because we're a small generator of material, we want to be able to identify, if possible, kind of niche materials. If we are seeing in our mix, gosh, we can have the opportunity to get a lot of X, film or K-cup or making something up, something new we don't even know yet, but that has saturated our market. If we can find a vendor, if we can find an outlet, can we quickly move? This system has some capability to be able to allow us to test that. So that was really a big selling point for us, was future flexibility. Also built into the general design of the system is additional space to hold on to any of those new materials bunker space so that we could sort something as, you know, kind of a test run and have a place to put it. That's also critical. So we built in that flexibility, so not just in the tech, but in the physical structure as well.
And then, one more question, I'll give somebody else a chance. Operational costs, so we have a sense of how BHS equipment, running operational costs, energy use.
That is a great question, and Paul did offer to run that for me, and we didn't have the time to pull that together. As far as what we focused on was employees and people as kind of the main driver behind a lot of that, not necessarily the electricity. And this system, as he mentioned, we have, again, built into the design key spots where if, you know, we can't find sorters, we could put in robotics. And so that flexibility is built in the system. And then over time, that does decrease your operating costs, certainly from a human resource perspective. But as far as the other stuff, again, he offered to run that for me, and we just ran out of time.
You kind of hit on it there, but I'm curious, across the systems, is there a difference in requirement for number of sorters, or what is that requirement, especially comparative to our MERV, the estimates we had? Like, what is the people requirement for to operate this?
Yeah, exactly. So that was also one of the things that we wanted to make sure was apples to apples. So they're all in the 12 to 14 sorter range. And then in each system, I said, well, okay, tell me where we can put robots that would then move, you know, probably one person. And again, it's not, I'm not trying to take away jobs. Yeah. We're recognizing that we may not be able to find employees, right? And this is a tough job. So we can be up as much as 14 people and down as few as 9. So that's a big swing.
Keep going, Kelton, then I have a question.
Do we worry about the amount of parts, spare parts, everything we'll have to carry in inventory and the increased inventory costs without having warehouses of material closer? And have we kind of added that into our costs?
Yes, Paul has provided a list of critical spares, and we want to make that, exactly to your point, we need to know how much we need to carry in inventory. I have not had a chance to review that list of critical spares to see if I agree with that, but they do have a recommended PM program, and so we would start there, right? And say, okay, what is the most important thing should something go crazy in the first year? And the first year is covered, but beyond that, what do we want to have on hand so that if it is something that our folks can repair without a tech coming in and having to bring the material, it's right there. They can talk them through the repair and or the replacement and work on that. Because part of the manufacturing is in Tennessee, it's not super long to get up here. I wouldn't want to carry a ton of spare parts. So that's why I asked them to focus on the critical spares. So we will work that also into the ongoing operating costs.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I know how the expense of next day shipping from coming from, it's
from anywhere,
it's a major expense.
Correct.
Correct. And just talking about inventory, and I just I don't know, I'm still kind of worried about what that might be with the system, again, not having a warehouse in Connecticut or in Quebec and being in Nashville. It's obviously a very, inventory is a tough piece to carry a lot of, and you definitely will need to carry more, I feel like, since it is so far away, and just trying to understand that.
Paul Holman?
Paul Holman, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so actually, you've given me credit for some of my CEO's comments here earlier. So you hear two different voices. Steve Miller was our CEO, and he was talking before. I just wanted to comment on, we do have set up different inventory locations for some critical spares. A lot of the materials that are critical spares are also can be obtained off the shelf. So it's not just, supplied by BHS or our subsidiaries like NRT only. We do try to keep as much common parts, both on hand with BHS, as well as they're common between pieces of equipment on site. So if you have one bearing set, for example, it would be the same bearing set that would be used in every conveyor, or one gear motor drive, or even a minimal number of different horsepower motors, for example. But we would be happy to work with you on limiting that amount of inventory to, bare bones minimum, and then having only the most critical spares there. We do carry a lot of inventory parts, particularly the critical ones that are in the controls or the electronics that are going to be in Tennessee. We don't have a Northeast warehouse at this point where we have located spares. We have done that in California. Can certainly consider doing that in other locations as well. But I think the critical spares are something that we can easily work with you on, something that makes the most sense for the district.
Yeah, again, my only other concern is we can't call up our neighbors anymore. Delaware is also not close. So it's just, I just feel like it's worth expressing that. I have not sat through 5 years of presentations, so I do not understand, but it's definitely just a concern from, we can't call New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, somewhere in New York, somewhere in the Northeast, it's in Delaware or Nashville. So just a concern.
So I have a question about timing. Originally Van Dyke reacted on that many, many months ago. Presumably that gave them somewhat of a head start, knew that we were both working in the same direction. What's the confidence level that the timing of purchasing this equipment will match up with our construction timeline and the urgency we have to get this MRF up and running as soon as possible?
And that was also part of the addendum, was to confirm that not just the ordering, but then through commissioning would meet our timeline. And BHS has provided the quickest order to completion timeline of any of them. So if it's well within our projected timeline for construction.
Bryn?
I would feel a little bit better having some sense of what the energy demand would be and whether it's comparable or ideally less than what our current MRF is. I would be surprised.
It's going to be more than our current MRF, because our current MRF we're hand sorting. So there will be additional usage. But yeah, I mean, we can certainly, and I think that gets to Leslie's revision.
It's really the energy consumption per unit of output.
Yeah.
It's not your gross energy consumption.
Which is still going to be higher, obviously, because it's still be higher, obviously, for the optical sorting versus manual.
Yes, but we're getting to 95% plus purity.
Yes.
So, you can't just say gross energy consumption. You need energy consumption per unit of saleable material. I mean, conceptually, if you could, I don't know if that's calculable, but conceptually, you can't just look at gross energy consumption.
And you could also include then a calculation, if it were possibly done, the offset of labor that's presumably we're going to be having a lower head count, and that would be factored in. We're trading manual labor for electrical.
Yeah.
How you calculate that?
Yeah, total.
Beyond my pay grade, but.
And that's one thing, is operational cost, and I'm thinking more expansively about our region and our grid, demand on the grid, and how much additional demand would be placed on the grid. So just thinking more broadly as well.
Yeah, I don't have that information.
Just giving my background.
Understood.
Rick?
Was the relative energy efficiency of the different vendors' systems considered?
And that was considered in the original proposals, and they are all roughly equivalent. There was not significant difference.
So we're not going to see a significant delta in energy consumption by choosing BHS over Van Dyke, let's say.
Correct.
I have another quick question on the question of spares inventory and turnaround and cost of accessing. I don't know anything about comparable freight rates. Maybe you do, Kelton. Is air freight much more expensive than truck freight?
Yes, so
It is?
Yes.
certainly, and,
I don't know, I'm just
oh, yes,
asking.
yes.
Significant.
Yeah, and if it's something that, it's a part that is a significant size, that's not going on the airplane, that's coming out on a truck. So we would certainly work with the VHS folks, like they said, on what is that minimal critical spare list, and then identify things that they would put kind of on a tiered program, say, okay, this is your first tier, you must have this, second tier is kind of the nice to have criticals, and then can we source any of that locally to reduce the impact?
And this might be too far, but I'd be curious if we could create some sort of relationship where we do get a discount on next day shipping, since this is one of their first facilities in the Northeast, and this is them getting their footprint in the Northeast. Like that's just something I would want to look at as like some discount, because to spend thousands of dollars on, and obviously this won't be a issue, hopefully, for many years, but once we do get to that point, I'd just be curious. Obviously California has their distribution warehouse, we just don't have that opportunity. And I think, again, just to level kind of the playing field, and I mean, hopefully they eventually grow in the Northeast and have a Northeast footprint. That's obviously an ideal state, but that's just something I would like
Certainly
to.
a point of negotiation.
Paul Holman, your hand is up. I don't know if that's from previous, but did you want to jump in at this point?
Well, I'm sorry, it's from previous. I didn't lower my hand, so I'll do that now.
Okay. Very good. Additional discussion at this point? We still haven't had the motion yet, I believe, so we're going to get that in and still have an opportunity to
I guess
have further discussion. Alan?
I'd like either of you to explain to me what you're concerned with energy-wise. Because, I mean, if the equipment is fairly comparable between the vendors, I mean, what do you want to see or end up with respect to energy consumption?
I think that gets into some operational things that Sarah can consider.
Like what?
Time of use rates with GMP. Things to decrease our operational expenses with use of the equipment, potentially. That gets into an operational realm that I think is too much in the weeds for the board.
And keep in mind as well, way back when we were first conceiving of this, we had hoped to be able to include solar as part of the project, and that is not affordable at the time. However, the design of the building, that's one of the specifications in the RFP, is to make sure that the design is not only suitable, but is, however they're structuring the site, that it is most amenable to future solar applications. So we would continue to look for opportunities to put in solar array or solar panels. There would still be some room on the site to do an array if we want to do that as well. So we're not incorporating it now, but we are making sure that down the road we can incorporate that. No help.
And I think his question was an excellent follow-up to mine. So having that answer from Sarah, kind of helps lead into other options and opportunities that could be explored.
Why don't we proceed then with getting this motion on the floor? And we'll move that along and still again have the opportunity for further questions.
Be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners authorizes the Executive Director to enter into a contractual agreement with Bulk Handling Systems of Eugene, Oregon for the purchase of a materials recovery facility single-stream recycling system as described in their initial and subsequent responses to RFP number 2022-0104, including the responses to addendum number 2, for an amount not to exceed $16,840,000.
So moved, South Burlington.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to authorize or enter into contractual agreement with Bulk Handling Systems, the equipment for the new MRF. Leslie?
I have a question. Given this not to exceed amount, that would not cover any agreement related to spares inventory potentially.
Correct. That's correct.
So is that sufficient?
So this is solely for the initial system, and then spares inventory, I would consider that part of the operating expenses.
Okay.
So capital versus OpEx?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Big decision that we're going to be making. I certainly don't want to rush the discussion.
These guys.
Lee?
Thank you. Just to the point of, if we did have, I don't want to say a catastrophic breakdown, but a substantial stoppage of processing, what storage capacity does the new MRF have or will have for accepting materials while the machine is down?
Yeah, the new MRF is being designed to have up to 5 days of storage capacity on the tip floor. And then we could also, if we needed to store on the bale storage area, we could store there as well. So potentially 5 to 7 days of storage capacity.
And that's at current tonnages coming in or based off of that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'd ask a follow-up then. In the MRF world, how long is a typical stoppage for an equipment failure? Is there any such thing, or is each situation unique?
It's all unique. Yeah, it depends on what's breaking down. One of the things that we have included in the system is redundant balers, having 2 balers, because that is the one piece of equipment you do not want to break down because that stops everything. So this system has 2 balers. The conveyors can go back and forth between either one. So if there's an issue with one, we can still run and we can still bale. We do not have that redundancy now, which is why we are, one of the reasons we're so vulnerable to stoppages. So really the baler going down is the critical piece. Other things that, just about anything, I guess, could stop you, a belt, anything, a motor could go. Motors, again, are easy to swap out. I'm trying to think of, really the big issues are things that almost have nothing to do with the system. So fire, for example, could cause stoppages for extended period of time, depending on the severity of the fire.
Power outage, which generally, would not be,
That's a very short amount of time to take care of those. But power outages, if we have a major blizzard, we're not collecting trash. No one's collecting trash. Everything stops, right? So, there's really the big area that you need the redundancy is balers, and we're covering that in the system.
One thing that I don't think we've talked about or is mentioned is just health and safety. And if there's any operational OSHA history with the various vendors that were reviewed.
It wasn't reviewed because they're not the operators. So everything but having said that, their equipment, everybody's equipment now, the modern equipments, they've got all the proper guards, covers, they all, obviously lockout tagout is just a required part of preventative maintenance. That is all built in. This new MRF will be quite a bit safer because it's going to be, instead of going high, it's going to go long. You're going to have a good amount of space from below the system to work on the system, rather than having to kind of crawl in between. The lighting is going to be better. It's going to be more open. The ventilation is going to be significantly better. Dust control will exist. So this whole system is definitely designed with safety and comfort as much as it can be, given the work for the employees. So it's,
Yeah, we just hadn't talked about it, so I want to make sure we asked.
no, thank you for asking. It's important.
In IT, you typically execute service level agreements that guarantee a certain amount of uptime. Is there something analogous here?
I would go to Paul or Steve if they, off the top of their head, just say, have a guarantee of uptime. Our expectation is 100%. So, what we're looking for is the guaranteed throughput of 25 tons an hour. So, that may not mean that you're constantly running all day, but overall the average needs to be the throughput of 25 tons an hour. But Paul or Steve, is there something that you can offer as far as guaranteed uptime?
Yeah, there is. In fact, we guaranteed a 93% uptime for the system, and commonly we have very high uptime for these types of systems. We also, within your controls automation and the what we call TIP, Total Intelligence Platform, you have really excellent line of sight around operating events, downtime events, cause of them. They get charted, and we really have a robust management process around that, so that if there are recurring items or issues, we're able to see those, they're very visible, and then address them.
We've seen typical uptime of between 95 and 97% on this type of plants. And that's best in industry, I would say. It is a difficult environment. All equipment is subjected to some of the most difficult material and conditions. But 95 to 97% is what our typical uptime expectations would be, and our minimum guarantee was 93%.
Thank you.
Additional questions? I think then we're ready for the motion to act on the resolution here, which again is to authorize the executive director to enter into a contractual agreement with Bulk Handling Systems for the purchase of the materials recovery facility single stream system. All those in favor, please raise your hand. I'm not sure if we've got everybody online.
Yep, there we go.
Okay. And opposed, please raise your hand. Any abstentions? I would say that the motion carries, and we have authorized our executive director to enter into a contract with the DHS. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
And Paul and Steve, thank you for being on attending our meeting to answer our questions.
Well, I think it's our turn to say thank you very much. We appreciate and just, I just want to add, we're just really excited at the opportunity to work with you and your team, and looking forward to the process. So thank you for your confidence. It's appreciated.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you again. So that concludes this item on our agenda, which was item 6. Next item is other business.
I actually have one other
Okay.
item for other business. I wanted to say a public thank you to the town of Williston for being our host for our meetings for so very long. We've greatly appreciated Williston's hospitality. They've always been able to work with us and wanted to work with us and been a great host. So I wanted to publicly thank the town, and we will be sending a letter of thanks as well. But I want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. And I also want to take this opportunity in other business to just acknowledge again Michelle Morris. This is her last meeting with us as Director of Marketing and Communications. How many years have you worked for the CSWD?
It'll be 14 in August.
I personally have always enjoyed when I see you on the news media or I see you online or something, wearing a vest, wearing the hard hat, confidently and cheerfully telling the public about all things, especially about recycling.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Is there any other business to bring before the board tonight? Alan?
2 questions for the next meeting. Could we get an update on mountain sand out of glass?
Yep.
And also the bond process and where we are with respect to that for the MRF?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
And actually, kind of piggybacking on that, traditionally, we have not, on occasion, had a July meeting. It's penciled in on the schedule. Sarah and I will be consulting. My opinion is that we've got important business to do and we can round up enough commissioners to give it serious attention, then we need to have the meeting and not just take the summer off.
I am anticipating we will need one.
Okay, we'll do our best to not have it be a long meeting, but we're here to do a job, so that's what we need to do. So that's just a heads up. Kelvin?
One thing, it's just I've seen at my current company, they do a good job of having people come in regularly, just give, a 5-minute presentation on what they do and what their different departments do. I think with a lot of new commissioners, I would suggest that we see about adding something like that so that people can get educated. It doesn't have to be anything long. It's a short and sweet, here's what we do at the organics diversion facility. Here's where we've come, here's what we do at the MRF. Here's what we do with our outreach team. And I think it would just be awesome to kind of get a regular cadence so that even once a year, we just have, doesn't have to be 12, doesn't have to be every meeting, but just get something like that.
Thank you, Kelton. We did that several years ago, and I agree. I think it's a great opportunity, and yes, we will do that. Great suggestion.
Well, we've still got 45 minutes on our so what do we want to talk about?
There's no more sandwiches, so.
Second, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.